Good afternoon and welcome back to the Symbiosis Literary Festival 2023. I'm Vasudev Menon from SSLA. Every year, the Cambridge Dictionary nominates what it conceives as the word of the year. And this is based on a consolidated year-long search prompt of what the users looked upon on the world's most popular dictionary of the English language. For the year 2023, the word happens to be hallucinate, right? The thrust here is not the conventional and everyday sense of the word, but, and I quote, as a verb having gained an extra meaning in 2023 that gets to the heart of why people are talking about artificial intelligence. We are coming on the back of a panel that discussed the interface between language and what it is to be a human being. And for the next hour or so, this esteemed and eclectic mix of academic and industry experience will navigate us through the topic of artificial intelligence and the future of language. It is an honor for me to introduce our panelists to you. Firstly, we have Dr. Mohammad A. Razzaque, or Raz as he would like to be addressed. He holds a PhD in distributed systems, that is wireless sensor networks, mobile ad hoc networks from the School of Computer Science and Informatics, University College Dublin, and is an associate professor, research and innovation in School of Computing, Engineering and Digital Technologies at Teesside University. He's a lead researcher with more than 15 years of experience in cybersecurity and privacy, generative AI and secure AI, and digital healthcare, leading a research group and open research output capacity at CDI Teesside University, and has secured over 1.7 million pounds worth of research funding, both SPI and a co-PI. He is the world's top 2% of most cited scientists in his discipline. Currently, he's working on secure machine learning, especially cybersecurity of generative AI and generative AI for cybersecurity, collaborating sensing for unmanned vehicles and application of generative AI. Dr. Gelareh Roushan has extensive leadership expertise in higher education and is currently the head of the Center for Fusion Learning Innovation and Excellence, where she leads institutional projects in educational enhancements and innovative pedagogies for higher education. She led the successful achievement of AACSP accreditation in her previous role in the business school, and more recently, she led the successful achievement of a bronze award in Race Equality Charter for PU. She has served on the board of UK Academy of Information Systems and is a mentor for the AACSB International. Her current research interests include using digital transformation to develop staff capabilities and enhance students' experience. Dr. Abhishek Kaushik, Program Director of Data Analytics at DKIT, holds a PhD in Computing and Artificial Intelligence from Ireland and a master's degree in Information Technology from Germany. Actively involved in Regulated Software Research Center, he showcases expertise in technology within regulated environments, bridging theoretical knowledge with real-world applications. He also works as a consultant in natural language processing, NLP, and AI. Dr. Kaushik's dynamic engagement in both realms underscores versatility and influence, seamlessly integrating theoretical expertise with practical experience. As a lecturer, researcher, mentor, and consultant, Dr. Kaushik's multifaceted contributions reflect a commitment to advancing knowledge and application in the evolving landscape of computer science and mathematics. And finally, captaining the ship and moderating the panel is the Vice Chancellor of the Symbiosis International Deemed University, Dr. Ramakrishnan Raman. An accomplished academician and seasoned professional, Dr. Raman holds a doctoral degree in management from Pune University. His extensive career, spanning over 2 decades, is a testament to his diverse experience in corporate, academic, and research domains. He has served Symbiosis for over a decade in different capacities, including Professor and Director, Symbiosis Center for Information Technology, Professor and Director, Symbiosis Institute of Business Management, Pune, Dean, Faculty of Management, and Director, Strategy and Development. His prolific research in information systems, IT strategy, entrepreneurship, AI, big data has earned him recognition with international academia. He has published several papers in reputed international journals, Index from Scopus and the Web of Science. His latest contribution, one of his latest contributions, is to an article called "The Potential of Generative Artificial Intelligence Across Disciplines: Perspective and Future Directions," published in the Journal of Computer Information Systems, published in October this year. I now invite Dr. Raman to moderate this discussion. Over to you, Dr. Raman.
Great. Thank you for that wonderful introduction of all the panelists. And I welcome all the panelists here for this particular fascinating panel discussion. Welcome to what promises to be a fascinating panel discussion on artificial intelligence and the future of language. As we delve into this cutting edge topic, I'd like to kick off things with a thought. In a world where algorithms are learning to write poetry and chatbots are mastering the art of conversation, it's safe to say that even language itself is getting an upgrade. So let's embark on this linguistic adventure and explore how AI is reshaping the very words we speak and write. Shall we? So let me go ahead with an interactive panel discussion where I'll possibly pose some questions to the panel members here, and I would request them to give their views on these questions that are there. Post that, we will possibly take the questions from the audience if there are any. So that's the format that I would like to follow for this panel discussion, and I'll be going in the alphabetical order. So that means that the first question would be for Dr. Abhishek Kaushik. Abhishek, let me look at the foundational changes that are happening. How do you see AI fundamentally altering the way we understand and use language in daily life? Let me repeat. How do you see AI fundamentally altering the way we understand and use language in daily life? Your thoughts, please.
Thank you, Dr. Raman, and thanks Symbiosis for such a nice opportunity to talk. And I think multiple dimensions, so unlimited, if I can say. With few of the examples I want to cover, like example of multilingual. I remember back when I was in Germany doing my master, it was so tough because if you are not a German expert, if you don't know German, it's so difficult to manage. And I'm talking about 2011, 2012. And recently I went to Germany. I have no problem with that because the technology has advanced so much that even a multilingual people have no challenges in dealing with it. That's sort of one simple life examples. There are many more. For an example, natural language processing for digital marketing, generating content. You have basically a lot of possibilities for the digital marketing expert. And even after the COVID, you can see a lot. It's open a new dimension. So yes, it's changing a lot. And recently I was involved in one of the project related to medical devices, and where we are working how this natural language processing can really help us to build certain systems which can assist people for their medical requirements, for an example, psychological requirements and all those things. So I think there's a huge possibilities, and it's open a scope for, means it's very inclusive. Means it's included the people who have a motor problem or disabilities. It has included a new dimension to assist and support. I think it's a great opportunity. Yeah.
Fantastic. I think I completely agree with your views, especially your example where you talked about going to Germany. Let me also give an anecdote here. When I visited Japan about 15 years back, it was a challenge for me to understand the language. So it was more of a sign language that I was using to converse with people when I was traveling either in the railway station or any other place. But now this about 5 months back when I visited the same country, I could see how AI could help in understanding the language better. So every time I was speaking in English, for example, in a railway station, the ticket collector would showcase a small pen drive kind of a device, which used to take what I speak, and he used to read something, and then he used to speak and make me read a paragraph. So here was a device which was understanding what I speak and immediately converting it for him to understand what he speaks and make me read what I understand. So, and I went to a supermarket and I could find this device there available for sale as well. And you can choose the language of your choice. So that's, I look at it as an impact of AI, of how it's affecting the way we really understand. I would like to request other panelists if you have any views on the same question. Dr. Raz or Roshan?
No, I think there are other points that maybe Dr. Rama we can come back to, but I think there's a lot of overlap as well. So it's interesting to hear that view. Thank you.
Perfect. So let me go to the cognitive impact of it. Dr. Roshan, if you look at the cognitive impact, the question for you is, in what ways can AI influence human cognition and the development of language skills that we have? Your thoughts, please.
Thank you. I think the first speaker really put some ground level for us as a foundation that that sort of resonates with some of the things in this area that I like to share as well. So in terms of AI's impact, I mean, Dr. Rama, you already used an example of a practical example, but I think it can definitely be used as a language learning tool. It can definitely be used as cognitive extension, and it can definitely be used in terms of shaping our interactions and communication patterns, again, referring to earlier examples as well. But in terms of language learning, we're seeing a number of language learning apps out there at the moment. And I've used some of them. They are very, very clever, very intuitive, and very practical. So we can see chatbots, we can see interactive software in some ways. So all of these have revolutionized the way we learn new languages. And these technologies use, complex algorithms as well. So say, for example, the language learning apps. So they allow us to be very individualized in terms of the way that we learn and our learning experience. And they support that. And the algorithm is sophisticated enough to start adapting for us and looking at our learning pace, looking at our style, certainly our proficiency level, etc. So it makes it very, very personalized to us as we're going through that learning. And also it provides instantaneous feedback, which is really interesting as well. You don't normally get that unless you're in a classroom environment and you're practicing learning language. And it does that partly by sort of providing immersive language experience for the learners as well, where we speak to it and it might correct us, or it might allow us to repeat a few times until it feels that maybe the pronunciation or even the grammar is accurate as well. So it is an interesting tool in that sense. In terms of cognitive extension, I think it becomes an addition to the human capabilities in terms of what we already know and can do, and how it can help us to use it a bit better. And I think cognitive computing has already sort of provided that extension of ability for humans. And also it has longer lasting, as we know, with well-being, particularly, as for the generation that maybe they are less active in terms of learning. It is a tool that helps with memory and problem solving, which as we know, research shows cognitively for older generations, it goes towards their health and well-being. And in terms of shaping human communication interactions, I think it allows us to think more about how we use language, even in whatever language that we're normally used to in everyday speaking. So if we think about AI and generative AI, the way we're using it day to day, one of the key things is about prompt engineering, is about how we frame our questions or our queries or our statements so that it is understood in the way that we had intended it. And I think in that way it's shaping our interactions in terms of human beings as well. So I'll probably leave that there, but happy to take any comments or further thoughts.
Yeah, beautifully put. I think I completely agree. Let me add, when you talk about personalized language learning, AI is creating a huge impact there as well. You have learning platforms, like, for example, the Duolingo or Rosetta Stone, which is popular. adapt individual learners' strengths and weakness. To that extent, they also offer personalized exercises, personalized quiz and feedback, which can enhance language acquisition by tailoring the learning experience to the learner's need based on how they are actually responding to it. So that's also something which AI is doing. Thank you for those inputs. Let me now go ahead with Dr. Raz, where I'm going to touch on the creative applications part of it. Dr. Raz, what are some of the most innovative ways that you think AI is currently being used in the creative industries related to language? Because that's one area where a lot of human creativity is needed, but AI is also having its impact. So I would like to understand your views on the ways in which AI is currently being used in the creative industries related to language. Your thoughts, please.
Yeah, thank you, Prof. Raman, and also thank you the other panelists as well as Manon. Welcome. And good morning from the UK, and I think good afternoon from the Indian side. And the problem we are having as a team, the questions we are having, they're having strong overlaps. It's very challenging for us to separate. Okay, so I'll try. I'm sorry if there is an overlap.
That's fine.
First of all, if we look into the history of AI, it started 1950 or 1940. But we started to know about AI since 2022 November, after the introduction of ChatGPT as a common people. Okay, probably, and in one time, I don't know, it's June 2023. The number of people who access ChatGPT is, I don't remember, it was in 100 millions plus, okay, that many. And this ChatGPT, or which is as a generic term known as large language model, and what Manon said, hallucinations. Its hallucination comes from too much creativity. So by nature, they are creative, okay? But we have to use them constructively, responsibly. Too much creativity is not good for us, okay, uncontrolled. So if we can use responsibly, definitely we can use it for many purposes, including learning language. So the first one is content creation. You see, we are having overlap. The generative model, if we know the difference between generative model and discriminative model, the discriminative model differentiate between your inputs. On the other hand, generative models take your input, it creates a model, and then it samples data from that one to create a response for you. So by nature, it can create whatever you want. For instance, if you want to learn Indian languages or maybe Hindi, it will take maybe 500 samples from Hindi people. Instead of differentiating who can speak better Hindi, it will generate a statistical model. After that, it can create any sample, any data you want. So creativity is there. So in terms of content creation, whatever content you want, like blog posts, even if you want to write a program, it will help you. This is where the education industry is struggling, how to judge your assignment, which is very challenging to us in the UK now, how you judge the assignment. Then it can write poetry. For instance, you want to write a poem, and honestly you want to write a poem, and you want some tutor to help you. So you can get a copy or virtual copy of your favorite poet. Okay. Then artwork. Our university, Study University, is one of the top in terms of media and arts. So we are using it, but still we are maintaining our original creativity, individual level, human level. Okay. But we are trying to use it in a controlled manner. So you can clearly see, content-wise, it can create whatever we want, but we need to use them responsibly. Translation, you all talk about AI translation. So we have a lot of Chinese students, sometimes they struggle, even during the lab session, during the lecture session, they use their phone. And you know why they are using their phone. Multimedia, ChatGPT already touched the whole world. Now, if you think of the multimodal LLM or large language model, which can create, if you ask something, you're sending some text, then it can create a scenario, it can create a video, it can create an image based on that text. Vice versa. If you have an image, it can do the reverse. It can create a text for you. So multimedia data creation. Then, for instance, if you have you have taken a picture, you don't know how to describe it. Okay, it can help you to find keywords. Okay, we have intelligent keyword tools, and AI generated journalism already as industry. It started already. You can see this one. Okay. Then AI-powered chatbot. The chatbot, I'm currently working with 2 companies, and one company is a global company. So what we're doing, can we develop an enterprise LLM that can help them, their customer, you see, co-creation. Can their customer can create, they develop filter, air filter, and also separator. Can they, the customer, at the moment, when they order something, they talk to their customer service, then customer service forward into the engineers, then it takes few days. Now our objective is to have a virtual design facility through which the customer can co-create the content. So also they wanted a chatbot that can give some service to them in terms of, if there is a fault, is an issue, instead of directly talking to them, first they go first in service from the chatbot. And finally, we already talked about this personalization. So whatever content we create, generally we don't create them for individuals. If we have to create individual level content, we have 8 billion people. We cannot do that one. So if we create one content, then AI can help us to make it personalized. So you can see AI can touch every level of language, every level of life. But again, I should say, we have to use it responsibly. Only then we can take the benefit of this. Thank you. I hope I provide enough information for that.
Yeah, thank you. I think you touched upon several aspects. If you talk about creative industries, art is one which is really creative, where you need a lot of imagination, and that's where AI is playing its major role. I would like to go and also add to what you told, where you talk about music. For example, the AI generated music. Music is a very creative process of generating a tune, but you have these OpenAI algorithms, MuseNet and others, even IBM Watson's Beat, which compose original music and even mimic the style of famous music composers. And adding to that is the remix and the mashups that are happening today, where AI creates a unique mixes and mashups of by analyzing, combining songs which are there of different music genres, and make it sing as if someone else is singing, and that's getting popular as well. But as you rightly told, I think it's about using it with caution and having the right rules in place. There is no regulation currently that's governing all of this. The ethical part of it actually becomes really important. And that makes me go to the next question to Dr. Abhishek, the ethical consideration part of it. When you talk about use of AI, we were talking about the creative industries and the problems that are there also, although it might look funny that you're going to have a song being sung by someone as if someone else is singing it, or give a voice and then that voice is picked up, and then if someone speaks, it will be like it is being spoken by that particular person. These are all creating a lot of ethical dilemmas there. So the ethical consideration part of it, what ethical dilemmas arise from the use of AI in the language processing and creation? What are your views? And we also have, just to add, that there was a recent video that came up where the Prime Minister of India was doing Garba, where the Prime Minister of India, Sri Narendra Modi himself, told that, look, we'll have to use it responsibly, and this is not what is expected. So just quoting that, what are the ethical dimensions, that dilemmas that arise from the use of AI in language processing and creations? Your views, please.
Thank you, Dr. Raman, and thank you, panelists, for such intuitive discussions. So I will start with quoting Indian Prime Minister, Mr. Modi, what he said, that we should be basically, these companies who are generating this sort of content, either it's a deepfake or any other company which is generating the content, they should be really mark it down that, okay, it's generated from that particular software. Now, this is, as Ras said, that the trustworthiness, and this is a critical issue, because when you see one side, the application point of view, but there's a downside here, which is huge, and we have to start talking about now, because recently we are very near to pass the AI Act for European Union, which have some fundamental concept related to trustworthiness and how responsibly we can use. I would like to just cover some of the ethical aspect here. Think about misinformation and disinformation is the biggest harmful tool which we can figure out. See riots in Dublin, or see something happens in India, you generate some hate comments, spend on the social media, and basically, yes, it contain a lot of risk to the society and humanity as well. So, and these are certain examples which I would really like to quote, because any guy who is harmful for the society, he can create certain content and then spread out. Now, I don't want to name a generative tool, but there was a generative tool which I was conducting a study with my own research team. So in that generative tool, we asked, okay, can you show us some hate comments for women? And it said, no, hate comments we cannot provide for women. That's fine. And it's a good tool because they are responsibly generating, they are responsible now. They are not generating hate comments for the women. But when we say, can you provide hate comments for the man? And they have generated. They have huge list of hate comments they have generated. Now think about, if people are started generating these sort of hate comments and putting on a social website, it is massive. It can create a lot of problem in the society. This is one thing. The second thing is manipulation and misinformation spending. You are manipulating information and misinformation spending it. There are a number of examples which I would not like to quote, but that can create a huge controversy. So that's another thing. The third aspect which I would cover is data imbalance. If we have a huge data imbalance, the model will be biased, and the model or AI generative tool, when they are biased, they could create a huge problem, because they will generate something which is favoring one particular community or one particular society, and that can create a huge problem in the society as well. So there are major things. And now think about on a different perspective, as I told you that I'm working a lot with medical and AI devices. How much we can rely on AI when you talk about medical devices, and thinking about that medical devices, the AI can help us in decision making. Think about any false negative cases can create a lot of can create a huge of problem. So yes, responsible AI and responsible in decision making is a big thing to discuss now. And basically, yes, we are coming to the AI Act of European Union, but I think we have to start thinking now as an intellectual and as a lecturer, as a professor. It's very important to teach student, and in academic integrity. I mean, this is another issue with the students. They generate anything on the chat GPT, and my problem is you generate it. That's completely fine. But the thing is that the learning curve. Now, example, for my programming student, they generate a lot of codes. Good. Okay, that's fine. You try to debug your code. That is also fine. But I believe the way I learned programming is when I got an error, I used to spend hours and hours over the internet to figure out why this error happened. Okay. But nowadays, when you got an error, you generate a code in generative tool, and basically you got a nice perfect code. And when you think about the learning outcome, student has nothing. He's not able to learn that thing. So this is the problem here, that the learning curve is something which I need to talk about. And why I'm discussing it here, because all of you are academians and you have faced the same situations. So that's why whenever I give assignments or assessment, I make sure that I conduct a thorough interview to validate the student's learning outcome. So this is another perspective, because we are making future. If our future generation is not learning anything, then it could be harmful for the future generation in respect to society. So yes, I agree on that. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Abhishek. I think that's a vital point when you talk about the ethical consideration part of it. I would like to draw a parallel here. When you had the calculators hitting the markets, people were against usage of calculators and told, how will people remember mathematic tables? If someone doesn't know 5, 6 or 30, he or she will still depend on a calculator telling 5 into 6 equal to 30. That is an equivalent that is happening with all these AI generated tools, which are throwing answers immediately. So unless we have a clear cut regulations that's coming in, like even in the Indian schools today, till a particular class, you're not allowed to use calculators in the exams, and you are supposed to know these mathematics tables by heart. although we are against rote learning, but if someone doesn't know 5, 6 or 30, or is not able to get 8 8s or 64 and is dependent on a calculator, that will be actually negative for him, because he or she will not know the basic of mathematics. And one more important point which you actually told is about the large data sets that may inadvertently perpetuate biases present that's there in the training data. This can result in the generation of a biased content, such as as you gave examples of some kind of hate comments that are getting generated. Now these are all issues with respect to the ethical part of it, and unless there is a proper regulatory framework that comes in, which has to be really making things the right way for it to be used at which level. Otherwise, it's going to be a difficult task when you talk about it being available for everyone, and that's the freeware. There are so many of them which people use it, and how it's going to affect is going to be a big question. Now, that actually puts me to the next question to Dr. Roushan. When you talk about all aspects related to the ethical consideration part, people just generate the content there. And like Professor Abhishek was telling, that, generate the programs or generate the content, generate essays, and then put it up telling its mind, generate poems. So this all brings to the authorship and originality, right? So when we talk about authorship and originality, how does AI challenge our traditional notions of authorship and originality in linguistic content part of it? So if someone says that, hey, look, I have written it, and we say, yeah, there are ways and means to find out if the person has written it or not. By using an AI tool, it will tell whether it is AI generated. But again, there are tools which will help you go ahead and humanize that content, and ensure that it is not detected that AI has written it. This is going to be a huge challenge with respect to authorship and originality. So the question to you is, how does AI challenge our traditional notions of authorship and originality in linguistic context? And your views on it, please.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I could probably debate and go for ages discussing Dr. Abhishek's comments about revisiting assessment briefs for students and helping us and students to develop AI literacy, because I think that's at the heart of it. Nevertheless, we are at a juncture that I think more than ever before that AI is having an impact, and it challenges the traditional notions of authorship and originality. So in terms of authorship, I think if we look at the legal debates and the ethical debates, I think those have implications, because in academia, as we know, we talk about academic integrity. And that's one side of it. So it's about presenting work that isn't yours. And we've had that before with other sort of tools and other methods in terms of commission work, etc. But I think AI has just made it that much more accessible and that much more sophisticated, and it's again very difficult to detect as well. So I think as universities or as research sort of journals, as we know now, when you submit to a journal paper, colleagues would share their own views, I'm sure, that you are asked, have you used generative AI, and in what way have you used it? So you have to actually declare to them about the authorship and about the originality and the intellectual property of your work as well. But I think it's just not a very positive way of looking at it if we are always thinking about the legal aspect of it. However important, I think they need to be dealt with. It's not that they're not significant. I think the most significant for me is to be able to teach learners from very young age in terms of the ethical declaration of how they've used it and giving them mechanisms. So there are universities, mainly English language universities that I'm familiar with, for example, in Australia, where they have a traffic light system that it tells you, this is how much I've used it for academics and for the students. So I think as we change our culture and our perspective and our own confidence in using generative AI to something positive rather than something that is compromising academic integrity, I think we get used to more about how it's used, and therefore that way try and address the legal and ethical implications as well. But nevertheless, I think with originality, obviously there is a challenge. Because you don't know who's created the content. You don't know, to what extent the content is created by the author and the content is created. So one of the professors actually in my university, I developed an AI think tank about 6-7 months ago, just for us to come together and just to see, because the sector, I think, is still thinking through about how to deal with this. So we needed guidance, we needed policy, all of those things, but we needed to develop a culture about using and embracing generative AI rather than shutting all the doors and saying you can't use it, because they can and they will. So in that conversation at the think tank, one of our professor colleagues, who's from another European country originally, and English isn't his first language, and he said, I use generative AI to, as I'm generating emails, for example, I put it, so the content is from me, the content creator is me, but generative AI is helping me, to communicate it more clearly in the English maybe style that I couldn't without generative AI. And he said, I declare that and I say that to my students, and I'm happy for my students to use that. But I know that the intellectual property of what I've done and what I've said is created by me. And I think that's really important. And students can't always gauge that, or learners at any age really can't always gauge that. Maybe we are struggling as well as academics, but we need to get confident quite quickly. And the only way we can do that is to keep trying, to keep playing with it, to keep working with it and sharing practice like this, this forum. I think the content is, the biggest part of this, and for colleagues to think about their own intellectual property rights as we used to, I think is going to be really difficult, because generative AI is going to completely reformulate that landscape for us. And I think the gap in the current legislation, I think an earlier panelist talked about EU, but the current gap in legislation, that in itself is presenting a challenge as well to universities and organizations more broadly, about the ownership, about the protection of content generally, and especially when AI algorithms are involved in the creative process as well. That becomes a very blurred area as well. I was talking to a colleague who teaches digital marketing, and in terms of helping her students to develop content and creation, she's incredibly skilled in how she uses it and what is out there. She tries to understand it, but she's equally very open to students learning and sharing as well. But that needs boundaries, I think. And when it comes to assessment and testing the learning outcomes, as you were saying earlier, Dr. Abhishek, these are things that we probably haven't grasped yet fully. And more frameworks, more legislation, more structure is required for learners, academics, and broadly in organizations as well.
Thank you. I think a lot of takeaways there: more regulations, more governance, more policies, and finally to decide who is the author. When you're going to have an AI assistant who's going to assist you, let us take someone has written something and it's Grammarly, which is going to help him connect. I'm just giving a tool's name here. And it's then a collaborative effort between the human author and the AI, which is going to finally create the content. So determining the authorship in that case becomes very complex, because it's co-authored by a human and a robot. But are we going to acknowledge that? And when should we acknowledge it? I mean, these are difficult questions to answer, but if it is a regulation which is going to clearly tell how it's to be done, then it becomes even more easy for us to go ahead and acknowledge that, right? So let me go to Dr. Raz for the educational implications of all these aspects. So when we talk, we are all educators and we deal with students, and especially I think you told even your previous views that you expressed about how difficult it is for us to go ahead and evaluate these essays, which are sometimes generated by AI tools, which is even not easy to detect. So coming to this question of, can AI be a tool for democratizing language learning and literacy? If so, how can that happen? Your views, please.
Yeah, Prof. Raman, can I respond to earlier two questions to my
Oh,
colleague
sure, sir.
also?
Definitely.
Abhishek.
Absolutely fine. You're welcome.
Yeah, because uh, my area of research, one of the areas is like AI assurance,
Yeah.
okay, which
Please,
includes
you're
all the
welcome.
topics, Abhishek, okay. And recently I had I was running, I was representing my university, taking the lead of LLM or large language model from my university. And we were having a workshop. I was having a chat, like a presentation to companies. The topic was LLM or generative AI, whether friends or foe for cybersecurity. Okay, that was my topic. Now, what Abhishek, like Kaushik said, or Abhishek, whatever, okay, Abhishek, like, uh, unfortunately, like after the like this transformer boom or like this, like transforming the technology, the key technology. Okay, it was proposed by Google. Even though Google is struggling with OpenAI now, it was their tool. They proposed it in 2016, I believe. Like since like 2022, end of 2022, the spam, especially in financial industry, increased severely. Okay, because it is very easy to create like a phishing email through this tool. So we need to think two ways. One, this tool might make us smart, okay? But the people who are bad already, they will make them smarter. Mind it, they are already smart, okay? It will make them smarter. So we need to make a balance between this one. Like we have Chat GPT, they have Fraud GPT, okay? You can buy that service. And they have warm GPT. Fraud GPT is a service, paid service, is legal service. Okay, you can create. You're allowed to make something to make, like you can hack someone with taking the support of that tool. So that's one thing. An ethical aspect also is the content thing. The Hollywood writers strike. They had a strike. Finally, those people they succeeded in convincing people, or the big players, especially big players, to give their credit. So we are seeing the negative side. The balancing is very challenging. Okay. So now go to our topic of democratization. Uh, Again, we have two sides here. Okay, it's one coin, two different sides. The first one is positive side. Let me talk about this one. When we talk about democracy, one of the key things is to make it accessible. Okay, service should be accessible to everyone. In that perspective, AI can provide access to, like, I can develop a tool, and a person, a computer engineer, or like ML scientist or ML engineer from Indian small village, he or she can develop something, and that service can be used by anybody in the world. Okay, it's accessible. Okay, from if at least theoretically, we're expecting that, okay, he or she will have a like laptop or some tools or phone and internet, even offline possible. So this is in terms of accessibility. And sometimes, as they are provided by cloud, even you don't need to buy a powerful computer. If you have a mobile and you can download the app, it's not easy. You have to download, install it, and then use it. You can access it in from your mobile. And the penetration of mobile, I don't know like about India, but like you see, it is, I believe, in terms of smartphone, it is not less than 50%. Okay, it's around 50%. So you have 8 billion people, and that we can expect the 4 billion people have maybe access to phone, and maybe out of that 4 billion, we have another 50% like smartphone. That means you can install your AI tools and use that one. So we have that one. Then second one, the inclusivity. See, like when you can see, like I can develop a tool, but it need to it may be accessible, but you're not including all kind of people. Okay, these tools, especially multimodal, if it is multimodal, then it could include all type of people. For instance, if there's a diff, like then he or she can use it with the audio thing without typing. Okay, and in terms of personal thing, like maybe I cannot cope with the speed in my lectures. I cannot cope like match the speed of my friends. They're really fast, okay, in catching something. But if I find something that is I can run, I can use at my pace, it will make me confident at least at the early stages. If I know many students they fail because when they go to the classroom, when they go to the lab, they struggle to match the speed and also they struggle to understand what they're saying. But if they can learn something at their own pace, probably it will improve their understanding. And scalability, you see, it's like the top platform normally, these big platforms, they are scalable. Okay, it means you can add whatever you want and you can reach from a remote. And even though OpenAI or ChatGPT sometimes they are slow in response, okay, they're struggling because they didn't expect that many customers, that many users will be hitting their platform, but they're improving it. It's scalable up to maybe in millions, but not in 100 millions. When you go to some they clearly ask you wait for a few seconds or wait for a few minutes, restart the chat, something like this. But I hope in future it will be scalable like that. Then speech recognition. You see, if you can recognize speech through that one, if you are allowing people from different languages, different culture, especially language-wise. We already mentioned this, that you visited German, or Abhishek visited German, you visited some other countries, but still you didn't struggle. So it's providing them facility. So all these things are positive. Also gamification. Through gamification, you can make interesting, okay? And that also provide accessibility to other group of people like kids. They don't want to learn it. If you make it interesting, if you make it funny, probably they will learn it, even without realizing it. Recently, I was working with one neuropsychiatric hospital. We are developing a solution. This is for autistic kids as well as people with serious brain injury. They lost their social skills. How can we use virtual content, VR content? Now, one of the problem we have, see, you cannot create, and also every single individual in autistic or this area, every single individual have their own type of problem. Okay, so in one hand, it's very difficult to develop solution for every individual. On the other hand, one solution is not suitable for everyone. So what is the solution here? We can come up with something that can help you to maybe group-wise personalized solution where AI can be useful. So these are positive things. Now the negative side one. Accessibility-wise, we're thinking this is accessible, but look into our older generation, our grandparents. They don't even like smartphone. They're afraid of using smartphone. I talk to many people, honestly speaking, because smart healthcare is one of my area. Okay, they are afraid of using smartphone, and many government, even in UK, even Ireland government, they try to use some smart technologies, even single button fall detection. Fall detection for the elderly people is a serious problem. They tested it. Can you at least press a button to alert the ambulance or somebody to take care of you? They struggle. The project didn't go through that successfully. So it means accessibility wise, in one hand is okay accessible, but on the other hand it may not be. And even in fact, when you look at the regulation, they are trying to make it not accessible to everyone. Because if you make the way, nuclear thing, okay, if you make it accessible, everything accessible to everyone, it is too dangerous, okay, too dangerous. So same goes for like education or learning or language. So we need to have control, we need to have responsibility, and also we need to have regulations. Then only we can expect, okay, we can make it uh, like a tool that can democratize language learning and literacy. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Great. A lot of pointers there for making it democratic. In fact, you're right with low-cost language learning apps powered by AI, remove the financial barrier to education for a country like India. And these apps can be used on smartphones, making learning accessible to all individuals who may not have access to even the traditional educational resources, but just having a mobile phone on hand with some data package installed on it, they can go ahead and learn. I think apart from that, you gave a lot of examples of how it could be made democratic. Thank you so much for that. Let me go with the next question to Dr. Abhishek, accessibility and inclusion. So we are talking about making it democratic. Now, let me go and make it still relevant to accessibility and inclusion part. In what ways can AI improve accessibility and inclusivity in communication for people with disabilities? Especially, this is one topic which is very sensitive. And what, according to you, can AI help in improving the accessibility and inclusivity in communication for people with disabilities?
Thank you, Dr. Raman, and Raj. Thank you a lot. You have given a lot of insight. I think we can talk about digital divide. We can have a complete chat on digital divide, what we can means developing countries and developed nations. But let me answer this question. I think we means all the positive and negative, but there's a huge positivity for especially abled people. That is the term which generally we use in India. And I really like that term because it motivates people to do positive things. And I think, for example, speech to text generation or text to speech generations are the good applications for the people who have a visual or hearing impairment. When basically the people who can't listen or who have a speech problems, they can use that text to speech and speech to text. It's a very good example. And I know a lot of people are doing it here. And one of my colleague, a German colleague, she used that, and she has a hearing impairment. But and back in 2000, early 2000, she has a huge problem in dealing with it. Nowadays, she can do well versed with it because of the technology of speech to text and text to speech translations provided. Then secondly, assisting communications. And basically now, apart from that, a lot of people have a motor skills problem. Basically, they don't have that sort of generative motor skills problem. So nowadays, with our mails ID, we have a recommended text. When we write few lines, there's a recommended word is coming. So that can help a lot of people which have a motor problem in terms of answering any emails or questions. So there's a huge scope. I can say that I was a part of one of the experiments which is being conducted that is related to confidence building measure in public speaking. So where basically you have a device, you go there, open the camera, start talking about, and the way you move your hand, it will tell you that's the right posture or not based on the psychology, and can help you those people who have a problem in terms of stage fear and all those things. So technology is doing its part. And I think it's a very good opportunity for the people to be inclusive. Means basically they include you in a society and they can help you. Think about one common example, that's a multilingual translation problem. My mother from India traveled to Dublin, and the immigration officer asked her that means basically why you came here. And she is not well versed with English, so she used her Google Translator and speak in Hindi and get it in English, and immigration officer call me, your mother is here. So you can see that every age person is doing it. But I do agree with Raj that yes, there's a digital divide based on the infrastructure in the countries, and I think India is doing great in that, from making it to the Vishwa Mitra now. So there's an approach there which we are adapting in India. So I think it's a good go, very good doing in terms of AI thing. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Abhishek. With a lot of examples there of how it could be useful, but then it pushes me to the next level. If you're going to have gadgets doing it right from the start, we are talking about examples of devices which are helping us translate language, translate voice to text, text to voice, help people. are we going to have a situation where translators are going to lose their jobs then? So that brings me to the next question, Dr. Roushan, for you about the employment concerns. What are your thoughts on the fear of job losses due to AI in language-related fields? What are your views on that?
I think this isn't the first technology in the last few decades that has promised to get rid of jobs or take people's jobs away from them. I think same as historical sort of technological evolution, it's more of a transformation as opposed to obsolescence of jobs. I think it's about integration of AI into sort of linguistic vocation, if you like, and I think probably more than that, it's probably refining the roles and adapting to what is there and how to use it. So I think as we're seeing now with every example that's being used today and other examples that we're familiar with in our research with our students, etc., it's the important thing is the human part of this. So I think an earlier comment that I made about an extension of the human ability, it's probably that. Other panelists talked about examples of students coding, for example, and how that used to be a learning outcome for them, but obviously generative. We have to see what is out there as our students graduate. So in the professions that they're going into, how they can add value to what's already there. And similar to the panelist example, that if students are not required to do coding anymore in quite the same way, maybe levels of coding, maybe some of the more automated ones that, or some of them that are easily automated, they don't have to do that. What do they have to do? They need to develop their critical skills. They need to develop their evaluative skills. And I think that's where the human sort of aspect of it will come into it. It's about an augmentation of productivity, if you like, bringing the skills of AI and then bringing the skills of the human beings in language-related tasks. And that could be, automated routine, sort of things that were traditionally quite monotonous tasks for us, and then looking at human professionals, obviously not just anyone. I'm not a linguistic, so I couldn't be able to add more value than maybe a professional person could, and they need to look at the complexities of teaching language or linguistics, looking at the creative aspect of it, looking at the nuanced elements of it as well. Just as I joined today's sessions, there was a speaker who was talking about nuance and in the importance of understanding what she's singing, for example, so that she brings in the appropriate nuance to what she was singing. So I think those are the parts that AI hasn't mastered perhaps yet, but maybe for some time to come, that's the main aspect of our role. So I think it's about an evolution and adaptation of what we do. Also about looking at novel sort of opportunities, areas, new opportunities that are coming through. I'm seeing more and more sort of skills needed out there for prompt engineering, how to ask the right questions so that you can get the most out of AI, for example. So I think in those sort of things, there are new opportunities coming through as well. There is a lot talking about different styles, the different styles of learning, and, looking at cross ages, looking at cross gender, looking at cross ability, all of those things. There is a lot of rich knowledge that's out there by professionals that we can use AI to adapt and hopefully get more out of it. And then in terms of looking at, for example, the ethical and cultural considerations. AI can't always do that for us. So as humans, we're the ones who can decide that. I know we talked about sort of the legal aspects and the governance aspects a little bit, but I think the ethical bit is hugely important. And the colleague who mentioned earlier, I think Dr. Abhishek talked about putting certain terminologies, and AI just refused to run it. Well, we had this issue with a medical example where they were trying to do a class simulation, and it was about race and ethnicity and the challenges of that in the NHS. And the students were very uncomfortable to try and role play that. But we used avatars, and we used different ways of simulating that conversation. But it was based on a real example that was taken to court, and between the family and the consultant and the patient, etc. So through some of these things, and playing and acting, but using the language that's being used, AI can do it, but we can't do it. But the company, the application that we use, we had to write to them to explain and ask for permission to use the language that we were using, and still we had to adapt that because they weren't comfortable with it. So it's good to have those ethical boundaries as well to help us go further. And then I think the quality of what AI produces, again, in linguistic and in learning new languages, etc., it's always one, as well as the new ones, that is absolutely critical and at the heart of what we do as well. So in terms of economic aspects, I suppose, I think we still are way off in terms of some of the policies that are related to education, that are related to society, and safety nets for people as well. That sort of touches on what I was saying earlier, but I think those are critical areas of it. Our law colleagues within the university, in the department, who teach law as a subject, they've decided to not use generative AI at all. So I worked with the university in terms of the policy, and they decided not to use it because they felt that there wasn't enough out there for the graduates going out there to know what they're dealing with. And of course, we heard in the media in the summer in United States that a lawyer's case was completely manufactured and generated by AI, and therefore it was a false submission that was given to court. So we need to be mindful of those as professionals in whatever aspect. And I think in terms of having a longitudinal perspective as well, as we're teaching our students in terms of what's appropriate, we refer back to higher levels of thinking and higher levels of learning order. Even so, for a first-year undergraduate students, previously maybe we were looking at, some foundation of knowledge. Maybe we can, in some subjects, actually take them to the higher levels and look at critical analysis and evaluation, and maybe creation of new knowledge as well, sooner than maybe we previously thought in that journey as far as education is concerned. So I think as historical experiences have shown us in evolution of technology, and we talk about this a great deal, the technological advancements that we're seeing now can actually lead to creation of new jobs, new types of jobs, and certainly new industries as well. So I wouldn't necessarily look at being worried. I would probably encourage our people who are getting ready to go into the job market to be more adaptive and look at language-related jobs where there is way of adding more value in a much more newer way.
Yeah, thank you. That's absolutely, adaptation is the key, and we might have new jobs. Prompt engineering could be one that will be possibly heard in the next 6 months to 1 year, and possibly other new jobs. That's how it happens always. I think we'll go to the last question and then open it up to audience questions. Last question, possibly we'll have time for about 2-3 minutes. That'll go to Dr. Raz. If you can possibly help us about the language preservation part of it. How can AI contribute to the preservation and revival of endangered languages? Your thoughts on it, please.
Yeah, thank you. In fact, we already cover partially like these things. See, the languages, we have a lot of languages, and Indian is an example of that. Too many languages in India. Okay, and one tool is definitely the AI generated content. And when you talk about this endangered language, one of the problem, for instance, my kid, I'm originally from Bangladesh. They don't speak Bangla. Okay, now how can I like ask them to learn Bangla in their own way? Okay, one of the tools is some tools are available. Duolingo is one of them. Okay, so AI supported or AI tool. Second, the documentation. So you have resources, documentation. Now, previously we used to struggle to document like older contents. It's very challenging. This is very, the AI tools supported by other devices, you can do without even writing a single word. So documentation is very easier now. Then when you try to learn a language, probably if you do it your own, it doesn't make any, it's very boring. Then through this social network or AI generated community, you can make a team. And then that team can help you. That could be a motivation for you for social interaction, but maybe in virtual environment, if not in the physical environment. Then also this AI tool can be used to, the campaigners, the preservation campaigns. This kind of tools can be used for preservation campaigns. If you want to preserve a language, but nobody's taking care of this one, but then this platform, social media, other platform can be used for that one. So number of channels, through different channels, we can use it to preserve our endangered language. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I think absolutely, that's one thing with respect to the current generation's the usage of, you give an example of Bangla. That's again something which happens across as well, with people migrating from one place to other place, and then possibly trying to forget their language, but possibly let us see how AI is going to help us go ahead and preserve it. Now, going with the questions from the audience, I can see one Rajeshwar Bala who has raised his hand here. Can you unmute and ask your question? Please address it to a specific panel member if you can, so that it is easy.
Good afternoon, sir. I'm Samiksha Pedewad, MBA first year student at Symbiosis Institute of Digital and Telecom Management. And my question is for Abhishek, sir. Sir, will AI lead to the emergence of new language or dialect, or it will homogenize the existing languages?
Very interesting question, Samiksha. And this, I am not a fortune teller, but I think there's a huge scope right now. Like I am working on a lot of English data, which is the combination of mixed code, Hindi and English. And elections are coming in India 2024, and music is a powerful emotions. So we are working on a project where we can generate some of the songs in English, which can motivate people at least to vote. So yes, there are a huge scope, but as Raj mentioned already, that we need to work on responsibly, that how we can use it for the favor of the society. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Yeah, thank you, sir. That answers my question. Thank you so much.
Thank you. We have Mohammad Marvi who has raised his hand for for asking a question. Yeah, go ahead.
Good afternoon. My question is for Razzaque, sir. They mentioned about the specific. Okay, first of all, I want to introduce myself. I was a Symbiosis student in 2018. Right now, I'm in Germany. It was interesting conference. That's why I joined for you. My question is for Razzaque, sir. What method, a specific method, is related to learn a new language? For example, I want to learn a new language. I know the talent and I know the everything, but I don't know which methods is useful to go ahead. Thank you.
How to go about learning a new language? That's what, in short.
Yeah, thank you, Eunice. Actually, this is not the question. I'm a teacher, okay, and I think everyone, probably the Roman can give the better answer to this one, okay. He's the most experienced one. Also, Roshan can give this answer. But teaching, learning something, you need to have the motivation. You need to have the strong motivation that because it's not learning a language, uh, always not that interesting. But if you have the strong motivation, then probably you can have it. And AI tool, then with the support of gamification, other content such as AR, VR, okay, even metaverse, probably they can make you interesting, the learning thing. But the traditional learning policy methods still valid. You need to use them. Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, so basically, if you are looking at learning a language, first you decide which language you'll have to learn, set a goal, ensure that you are able to go and converse with people in that language. Otherwise, it's so difficult. So, if, for example, you are in Germany, you will be able to learn German fast than sitting in India and learning German. So, basically, have the peer group which speaks that language. That's the easiest, and hence, if you are in that peer group, you'll be able to pick up that language very fast. So, if you're going to learn a particular language, see if you got a peer group of that particular language that makes it easy for you to learn the language. That's 2 cents from my end. Yeah, let us go ahead with Vrinda Sharma.
Good evening, everybody. I am Varinda Sharma from SIDTM. My question is to Dr. Roshan. So we have seen that with the with the emergence of AI and generative tools, we'll be able to learn languages much faster. So is it by any chance that we will lose the essence of our own language? Like everybody have their own language and the dialect. Is it a chance that in future we will lose the essence of it?
Thanks for that question, Varinda. I'm not sure if AI will do that. I think that's happening to some extent. I think going around the world and the use of English generally in the as part of the standard vocabulary, it's really interesting and much more so than than ever before. And I've traveled a fair bit around the world, and even in some rural areas, I find that people are quite comfortable with at least basic English. And that has its advantages because, as earlier panelists have talked about accessibility and about inclusivity, it just opens up some of those opportunities. What I do find interesting is that it's mostly American English. And obviously, I've lived and been raised here. I'm used to UK English. Now, many years ago, I did my gap year in the US. But when I came back and used some of those terminologies, I had to say what that actually meant. But nowadays, we don't have to do that because of maybe Hollywood, because of maybe the exposure to English language generally and the accessibility of that. So I don't think it loses our own mother tongue necessarily, but I think the general evolution of globalization is changing that. I don't believe AI would do that for us. I think all of these tools will help us get there quicker, but I don't think they make globalization necessarily happen. I think they might enhance it, enable it, but I can only see good things because once we converse with each other, I think other panelists talked about the importance of, being somewhere and instantaneously talking to someone. And I've done that on Google, where an elderly sort of relative who's Italian, and I just love to talk to her, and she talks to me in Italian, and I talk to her in English, and we're not quite sure where we're going with this, but that the connection is then built through that app and the Google Translate or whatever tool that we use. So I think these are good things that are happening. I think the only thing that would affect us sort of maintaining the ethnicity of our own language or dialect is the way that we practice it and the way we pay attention to it at an early age for our children, for youngsters, and making sure that they're exposed to it. And they might lose touch with it as teenagers. My son did that, he lost touch, and then now he's come back to it. And then when he starts writing and speaking in Farsi, for example, which is my mother tongue, you know, I get quite excited because, you know, his dad is English and I've been brought up here. So for him to be able to do that through these different apps is really exciting. So but that's the opportunity that he had. And I think if more and more we can do that at an early age, it tends to stay as well. I don't think AI will help us banish that. Sorry,
Absolutely. I
Dr.
think
Rama,
absolutely right. I completely agree. And my answer is a big no, because a translation may not always capture the cultural nuances and the context of a language, leading to potential misunderstanding and the loss of cultural richness in communication. You know, that can never happen. So my strong view is it can never go and replace the language. Sorry for interrupting there. That's my view.
So we have
Okay,
to
I
wind
think
up
fine.
now.
Then let us come to the conclusion. It was wonderful. All panel members, thank you for your detailed answers and your views on several questions that we discussed here. That was a great value add for all who participated here in this panel discussion. Over to Vasudev Menon for concluding remarks.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. Thank you for keeping us all in the loop and keeping us all on time as well. Thank you for the rest of the panelists, Raz, Dr. Gelareh, Dr. Abhishek Kaushik. Thank you very much for being a part of this panel. With this, we will have to conclude this afternoon's panel on AI and the future of languages. My thanks to all of you who have joined us with us on Zoom and also who are connecting with us via YouTube. Thank you for joining us once again. See you.
Thank you
Bye-bye.
all. Thank you.